A girl named Alice got tired of walking all day without doing anything. The heat made her sleepy. Suddenly she noticed the white rabbit, who was in a hurry somewhere. It seemed strange to the girl that he was talking to himself and kept looking at his watch. Burning with curiosity, Alice rushed after the rabbit, and without hesitation jumped after him into the hole. Inside was a deep well, the walls of which were lined with bookcases. Alice fell very slowly and managed to see everything properly. Once at the bottom of the well, the girl noticed a glass table with 3 legs. On it lay a small golden key and some kind of bottle. Alice tried to open the door with the key, but it was too small. Looking around, she saw a small door. To open it and find herself in a magnificent garden, Alice had to drink from a bottle from the table. After taking a couple of sips, she began to decrease in size. The girl shrank so quickly that she did not have time to take the key from the table. Then she saw a magic pie on the floor. As soon as Alice took a bite, she began to grow rapidly upward. The girl grew so much that she could not go through the cherished door again. Alice began to cry so much that soon a huge puddle formed near her. At that moment she noticed the white rabbit. The girl called him, but he was in a hurry, and in fright dropped his gloves and fan. Alice picked them up and noticed how she began to shrink. The reason was a magic fan. Alice fell into a pool of her own tears. When she was thrown ashore, the girl again noticed the rabbit. He confused Alice with his maid, and ordered to immediately go home for new gloves and a fan. The girl ran to carry out the order. In the rabbit's house, she could not resist curiosity, and drank some liquid from a bottle. This led to the fact that Alice grew to gigantic proportions, and quickly filled the whole house. She was able to shrink only thanks to the pies. Having regained her previous dimensions, the girl ran away. Soon she saw a huge mushroom on which a large blue caterpillar was sitting. Alice complained to her about her constant changes in height. The caterpillar advised the girl to eat a piece of mushroom. Alice ate a small bite and finally returned to her normal height. And she went on. Suddenly, Alice saw a house. Going inside, the girl was in the kitchen, in which she saw the Duchess with a crying baby in her arms. A huge cat was sitting on the floor, smiling from ear to ear. The Duchess explained to Alice that he was smiling because it was a Cheshire cat. Suddenly the cat disappeared and the baby burst into tears. The Duchess gave the child to Alice, and she herself went to the Queen. The girl was surprised to find that she was not holding a child, but a real little pig. When the cat reappeared, he advised Alice to find the March hare. And then he disappeared, and only his smile remained in the air. The girl hit the road. Soon she saw the house of the March hare. Alice came just in time for the beginning of the tea party. The table was huge, but only the March hare, the Mad Hatter and Sonia the Mouse were sitting at it. They would not let anyone sit at the table, and said that there was no room. Alice learned that they were forced to drink tea incessantly as punishment for killing time. The hare and the Hatter mocked the girl in every possible way and ridiculed her. Unable to tolerate such rudeness, she silently got up and left. Soon Alice found herself in a wonderful garden. She noticed gardeners who looked like playing cards. They dyed white roses red. The girl was very surprised at this. She learned that their queen loved red roses, and only white ones grew. The queen executed her servants for the slightest offense. The gardeners said she was judging the servant who stole the cookies right now. Alice was very interested, and she went to court. There she saw the March hare and the Mad Hatter testifying. When they finished, the queen suddenly summoned Alice for questioning. The girl replied that she knew nothing and ordered to let the servant go. The queen got angry and ordered to grab the girl. At that moment, Alice felt that she began to grow again. The girl realized that these were just cards, and she was not afraid of them. And at that very moment, the magic disappeared. Alice woke up in the same clearing where she first saw the white rabbit. There was a familiar landscape around, familiar sounds were heard. So it was only a dream, thought Alice. Doomed by fate to lead a hectic life, Lemuel Gulliver again set off on a voyage on the adventure ship 2 months after returning home. But as soon as the ship passed the Strait of Madagascar, a storm overtook it. Strong gusts of wind carried the ship to an unknown land. When the sailors saw the land, they decided to inspect it and collect fresh water. Gulliver went down to the shore with the sailors, and the crew scattered across the island. Not finding water, Gulliver decided to return to the shore. But as soon as he approached the ocean, he saw that the sailors had abandoned him. They were sailing away in full sail from the huge giant who was chasing them. Frightened, Gulliver rushed into the interior of the island. He ran to a barley field with huge ears and realized that he was in the land of giants. Gulliver sat down to rest. But before he had time to catch his breath, he noticed a huge foot that was about to step on him. Gulliver started screaming as loudly as he could. And the giant noticed him. He lifted Gulliver with his hand, examined him intently, and carried the little man to the owner farmer. The farmer tried to speak to Gulliver, but his voice was so loud that it deafened the little man. Then the owner brought Gulliver home. At the house, the farmer's family was preparing for dinner. The little man was seated on a table where gigantic pieces of beef and bread lay. But before Gulliver had time to break off his bread, the farmer's son grabbed it upside down and began to shake it. He mistook Gulliver for a toy and tried to put it in his mouth. Then the father loudly threatened his son and asked him to treat the little man more carefully. Later, the farmer's 9-year-old daughter made a bed for Gulliver, sewed clothes for him, and even taught him the language of the giants. The girl gave Gulliver the name Grildrig, which meant dwarf. He called her a nanny. Gulliver aroused great interest among other giants, so the farmer began to show him at fairs for money. But frequent performances undermined Gulliver's health. Then the farmer happily sold the little man to the queen. So Gulliver moved to the palace and became the darling of the royal family. However, the court dwarf, who was no longer considered the smallest man in the kingdom, disliked Gulliver and ruined his life in every possible way. Once, when Gulliver was strolling through the garden, the dwarf began to coward the apple tree. And Gulliver had to escape from the falling giant apples.
Oh no!
And on another occasion, an agile dwarf pushed Gulliver into a huge jug of cream. And only the cook, who entered on time, saved the little man from inevitable death. But it wasn't just because of the dwarf that Gulliver got into trouble. So one morning during breakfast he was grabbed by the cook monkey. Like a cub, she began to rock Gulliver and then dragged him to the roof. The giants rushed to save the little man. And as soon as they climbed onto the roof, the monkey threw Gulliver off. Fortunately, he managed to catch onto the shingles and was safely rescued. In general, Gulliver's life in the kingdom was happy. He often accompanied the queen on her travels. They even made a special travel box for him. And once on another such trip, the servant brought the box with Gulliver out to the sea so that the little man could enjoy the fresh air. But then a shadow began to flicker over Gulliver's head. A sea eagle flying past noticed prey in a box. He grabbed the ring on the lid of the chest with his beak and carried Gulliver over the ocean. At some point, the bird released the box, and the captive found himself in the open sea. Gulliver barely managed to open the top hatch. He started shouting and waving his handkerchief. Finally, he was spotted from the ship and helped to get out. So, after all the adventures, Gulliver returned to England again. For a long time, he could not get used to objects and people of normal size. And Gulliver's wife, frightened that he had gone mad, strictly forbade her husband to think about traveling.